You're on CYInterview.
I'm Chris Shandek. Today on CYInterview, we have the great pleasure of welcoming Hollywood legend, Academy Award-winning actor George Chakiris to talk about his new memoir, My West Side Story. George, thanks for being on CYInterview. How are you?
I'm okay this morning. It's great to be with you. How are you?
I'm great. It's really great to talk with you. Phenomenal read. I just want to say, to me, reading your book, I just feel like you have so much gratitude and so much appreciation for everything you got to do in your acting career. How did you keep yourself so grounded and appreciative of everything?
Well, I'll tell you, thanks for seeing that. I really appreciate that view of the book. I really think that my brothers and my sisters and I all are, I would say, grounded. That's because we had such incredible parents who were themselves so beautifully grounded and very solid, people. My parents were our parents were the most wonderful people I've ever known. They're so ethical, so kind, so generous. We had such a great. They gave us a wonderful childhood. Everything. They were just so supportive and just really beautiful people. And I think that's probably what my brothers and sisters and I all feel, quote unquote, grounded. We got that from them.
What I gather from reading your book is, besides your desire to work in show business, you were a true fan who was interested in what everyone else was doing around you and during that era in Hollywood. What was it like to get to witness other people's art, some of the greatest stars ever? Did you feel like you had a front row seat to many of Hollywood's greatest stars and their work?
Well, I never thought of it. I guess I did have a front row seat, didn't I? Just working as a chorus dancer, for example, and behind Marilyn Monroe, Rosemary Clooney, Rosalind Russell. That actually it's a great way of putting it. It really is. It was a front row seat. So we got to be around these extraordinary people and watching them work and achieve what they achieved. So it was just a delicious, wonderful, wonderful time. All of the dancers who worked as in the course of those Hollywood movie musicals, we all had such a great time because we really loved what we were doing, working with great choreographers and again behind such wonderful people, and in movie musicals, which we all really loved. So it's one of my favorite times of life, actually.
CYInterview is a media outlet based here in Las Vegas, and I loved hearing about the Judy Garland residency at the Frontier back in 1956. Can you take me back and tell me what that experience was like and what it was like working with her?
Well, I'll tell you what. Robert Alton, who was a great choreographer who did Reach the Parade and No Business Like Show Business, so many wonderful movies. Of course, I've worked with Judy Garland at Metro over the years. And let's see, and he was choreographing and staging Judy Garland's first appearance in Vegas. So he hired two people, a female, to stand in and learn what Judy had to do, so she could teach Judy what Robert Alton had staged for her. And Judy had 11 guys in her show at that time, and so he hired me to stand in for them and to learn what they had to do and teach it to them. So I never got to actually have an exchange with her, but I did get to be around her for that whole rehearsal process and for the opening in Vegas and all of that, and later as well. But she was, I'll tell you, hey, she was Judy Garland. What can we say? She was amazing. She learned so quickly that she didn't need a lot of rehearsal. She didn't need to keep doing it over and over and over again. She learned so quickly. But we had to do it over and over again just to stage it for the guys and so on. And I remember at that time she had just released an album, I think it was called Judy, in which she sings, among other things, Come Rain or Come Shine. It's a great album. She did a lot of those songs in her Vegas act. And so for rehearsal, we didn't have a pianist in the room, so we rehearsed to Judy's album. Because the vocal was already there, she didn't have to sing out, really. And, of course, she didn't need to. She knew what she was doing. But Joan Bailey, who was Robert Alton's female assistant, at one point during the rehearsal said to Bob Alton about Judy, said, she's just marking it. She said, when is she going to do it? And Robert Alton very quietly said, just wait. And that's exactly right, just wait. And, when she performed, there was no one like her. Her connection to material was just extraordinary. She was, she was she wasn't tall, she was about 5'1" or something like that, but she always came to rehearsal in black tights and a man's shirt. And she was very funny. She loved talking to the guys between rehearsals, and she had some really very funny jokes to tell. And anyway, she was just extraordinary to be around. One of the things that I always felt about her, when she looked at you, I felt like she could really see right through me. She could see who I was without me saying anything. She had an extraordinary capacity, I think, to just understand people and see who someone really was. And Liza, I think it probably was about 13 or something like that at the time. Liza came to rehearsal quite a few times, and she loved to learn. So I taught her some of the steps the guys were doing, and just like her mom, she learned so fast. So it was just a wonderful time to be around someone as extraordinary as Judy Garland.
As you write about Marilyn Monroe, you say, I worked with Marilyn Monroe. I didn't know her personally, but what was it like to witness her work and be in the same room with her?
Well, I was one of the guys behind her in that wonderful number, Diamonds Are Girl's Best Friend.
Yep.
And so we rehearsed for about 4 weeks or so while Jack Cole, the choreographer, staged the number, and then it took 3 days to actually film the number onto 9 o'clock in the evening on the third night. And after it was over, when I thought back as to what it was like, one of the things I noticed about her was whenever they called cut for any reason, she didn't look in the mirror. She didn't go to her dressing room. She went right back to her starting position to start again. So what that led me to believe, and I think actually see, was how concentrated she was on her work, and she didn't waste time talking to people. She was she was quiet. She was very quiet. Every time I saw her, she was always very quiet. And I really liked that about her, and seeing her dedication to her work. I mean, every performer, almost all performers, of course, are dedicated to their work. But I think hers somehow was, always to me, seemed like deeper. The caring sort of went deeper, but But again, I just loved the fact that she didn't check herself in the mirror. She didn't care about what she looked like. She was concentrated on the work, and I really appreciated that about her.
Well, I want to follow up with that because I was going to ask you about that. When it comes to cinema history, with Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, of course, in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, where does that rank in your mind? How important is it when we talk about dance numbers in films?
Well, I'll tell you, that number it's such a beautiful number. We use words like iconic so much these days, but Jack Cole, who's choreographed and staged that number, was Marilyn's favorite choreographer. She always wanted to work with him, and she was right to want that. He was fantastic. So when you look at the totality of that number, everything, the design of the sets, the girls in the chandeliers, just the look of it all, the costume design, the various camera setups and everything. It's an extraordinary piece of work, and we can attribute that number, I think, almost because the director for that movie was not on the set while we were shooting that number. It was totally Jack Cole. I think it's good for people to know that and to recognize who he was and his contribution just to movie musicals, and certainly to that number and other things that Marilyn did. Because Jack Cole designed everything. He designed the sets. I think he helped them design costumes. Sometimes he has little asides for the women to, for example, Jane Russell in the number that she does, there are asides that she says to the guys that are very humorous and sort of double entendre. But all of that is Jack Cole and his contribution to movie musicals, I mean, it's more than Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, but certainly that is a strong word. It's a great number when you look at the whole thing.
Your book goes into great detail about being able to tell the story of how the West Side Story came to be and almost didn't become a reality. Do you look back and say, how different would my life have been if it wasn't a reality and this was never made? How do you look at how this moment changed your life?
Well, listen, God, it changed my life tremendously. Again, I was so happy, being a dancer and in the course of some of those great movie musicals and musical numbers. But it was West Side Story that gave me a chance to work as an actor and so on, and to be able to be an actor in films. So it was a huge breakthrough, of course, mildly for me. I had done the show in London, West Side Story in London, for a year and a half. I played the role of Riff, and then being cast. The film is what made a huge difference for everyone connected with the film, no matter what your connection was. So it was tremendous for me, and it still is. It's amazing.
Looking forward to that, I would just like to say, what was the process like for you, just acting in that film? What was the mental needed for you? It obviously felt like, reading your book, that it was kind of, maybe, can I say that it was a grueling experience for you, though a rewarding experience?
Well, I'll tell you, it was, and I'll start with, rehearsing for the London show. We rehearsed in New York, but and both for the London show, the London production, and for the movie, it was working with and for Jerome Robbins. Jerome Robbins set the stage for that entire piece. It was his idea to begin with, before it became opened on Broadway in 1957. So it was his baby, so to speak, in collaboration with incredible people like Leonard Bernstein, Stephen Sondheim, of course. But so I always go back to Jerry, because to me he was the heart and soul of this piece. He was the inspiration. Sounds so corny to say that, but he really was inspiring. Just in his presence, one of the beautiful things about Jerry was, as a director, he didn't say, go here, go there, sit there when you say this line. He didn't give that kind of direction. He made, I think, just everyone that he worked with aware of what they could bring to work, aside from being told what to do. So he inspired that in everybody, and it was a strong feeling that just went through everything, where it was a fun, like the American number, or serious, like Cool. But again, I really, in my mind, I do attribute so much to Jerome Robbins because of his genius and his talent, his perfectionism, and he was a perfectionist with himself first. But that perfectionism, I think, bled over into how everybody else felt, and what inspired them to bring things that they weren't necessarily called upon to do, that knew they should do. But it was a great, incredible experience for everyone concerned. It was more than people had ever been asked to do before, but it was so worth it, thanks to Jerry.
Well, just a short question. To the overview of how the West Side Story came to be, the theater production and the movie, obviously you were there, you knew all the key players, but it just felt like you put together almost a biography about how this thing came to life. Did you do any further research? Did you talk to any people when you were writing your memoir, or was this just all things that you remembered and could reconfirm?
It was exactly that. It was trying to remember as much as I could. Obviously, I didn't remember everything, but it was that. I did go back and do some research for dates, for example, knowing exactly when it opened in New York. I do remember that, 1957. So specific things like that, I did go back and do a tiny bit of research. But basically, everything that I say about it comes from my own memory of what happened. And also, I wrote the book with a wonderful writer, Lindsay Harrison, and she was wonderful at jogging my memory and bringing things back to my mind. And so that process was made better by working with Lindsay. But again, it was just it was me trying to remember as much as I could about those experiences. Really, that's what it was.
Reading the book, you develop a very close friendship with Rita Moreno. What does your friendship mean to you with her, and what are your memories of working with her on the film?
Oh, wow. Well, I'll tell you what. I remember the first time I met Rita was the first day of rehearsal for the movie here in Los Angeles. And none of us knew each other, but we sort of got to know each other. But and that was a long time ago, so I've been great friends and close friends with Rita for a very long time. I'm godfather to her daughter, Fernanda. So our friendship is, we're kind of like family. In fact, I often like to refer to the cast, everybody in West Side Story, as a West Side Story family, because that's exactly what it felt like. Most of us have retained our friendships over the years with each other, and whenever possible, we see each other, because the West Side Story was a phenomenal experience for all of us, and brought us together in a more substantial kind of way. But again, my friendship, I don't get to see Rita as often as I'd like to. She lives in Oakland, but when we get together, it's like no time has passed. We laugh, we remember things. It's a beautiful friendship, and again, we're part of each other's lives because we shared that experience, and because we remained friends all this time as well. And
what are your memories of Natalie Wood from that film?
Oh, well, God, Natalie. Loved Natalie. Absolutely adore Natalie. She was, you have to remember, she was only 23. and she was in that entire group, Natalie was the movie star. She was a movie star. She didn't try to act like one. You just knew that she was. She was gorgeous, just beautiful, natural beauty. She was smart. She was intelligent. She was a beautiful actress, and went on being a beautiful actress for a long time. But she was patient. She was funny. She was nice. She was comfortable to be around. I did get to know her personally a bit, and I'm really grateful for the time that I did get to know her. But I really liked who she was as a person. I've heard over the years that she was sort of distant and not friendly with the cast. That was never my experience. I never saw that. In fact, I'd say the opposite was true, because she was very gregarious and associated with people beautifully. But again, long answer. I'm sorry. She was great. She was beautiful, and she was a wonderful, wonderful young girl.
We like long answers on CYInterview, and I enjoy all of your stories this morning. So moving ahead, you and Rita and a bunch of other people from the film get nominated for an Oscar. So going to the Academy Awards night of 1962, do you ever think about what you would have said during your Oscar acceptance speech, and do you wish you prepared one? It was obvious that you and Rita were just honored to be nominated in your supporting actor and actress categories, but I don't think either of you thought that you had any chance of winning. So when you won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, I know that you had a very short speech of about 5 to 10 words. Do you ever look back and say, I wish I would have prepared a speech? I wish I would have said something differently?
Well, again, I go back to thanking Robert Wise, Jerome Robbins. I mean, those two men specifically because those are the two guys that we worked very closely with. And God knows Jerome Robbins and Robert Wise, but especially Jerry, certainly deserved that recognition. So I've thought since, I wish I'd said that, or at least about those two men in particular. Other than that, I know these days people, it's what happens now, and people are obligated to thank many people in the course of making a film or a television series, whatever. But at that time, people didn't really do that. So Rita's speech and mine, of course, as you said, were very short. And my only omission, again, I'm repeating myself, sorry, would be that I didn't have the presence of mind to thank Jerry Robbins or Robert Wise.
Oh, that makes sense, absolutely. So going forward from that, I want to just say, as far as the recognition that film got, the night of the 1962 Academy Awards. Do you, looking back on cinema history and the things that you've seen in the last 60 years, think that that would maybe, arguably, be the greatest night of recognition and achievement for a movie in Hollywood history?
Well, I never thought of things like that at the time. It really didn't. I was just along for the ride, I guess I'll say, in terms of appreciation for everything that was happening, and a lot was happening worldwide. It was pretty phenomenal. I just in retrospect, of course, I can appreciate and recognize things that I didn't really wasn't properly aware of at the time. It takes time to absorb all of this stuff, so I can see it now. But at the time, I didn't see it. I was just so overblown by what was happening that was the main sort of thing that was going on.
Well, you mentioned in your book, speaking of that, and even after you win the Academy Award, you were still, I think the word you used in the book is you were a little naive about Hollywood and the acting profession. So after winning the Oscar, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I really was naive, and I don't blame myself for that. It's just circumstance was moved on that way. I've been working as a chorus dancer, and then I got to play Riff in the London Company, and then do the film as well. But my experience was only that. So after the movie, the Mirrors Company signed me to what is called a picture deal, and then I was starring above the title with Yul Brynner and Charlton Heston and Richard Widmark. They were experienced, and they understood everything. I was inexperienced, and I loved it, but I didn't understand what a career was. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that you could make choices and that kind of thing. So in that sense, I was naive, but at the same time, I really appreciated everything that was happening.
Do you have any regrets? Do you wish you would have done anything differently, was what I was going to ask you. People always like to focus on where does an actor's career go after winning an Oscar. How do you feel it all turned out? Well,
I'll tell you, there's one thing that comes to mind pretty often about that. When we were making the movie West Side Story, I had no representation. I didn't have an agent or a manager and any of that stuff. But because of the film, I was able to eventually have that kind of representation. And there was a woman, she was a wonderful manager. Her name was Ruth Arendt. And I signed with Ruth. She represented some really good people in the business. And there was one thing, Ruth, she was great, but she was, she was someone who really needed control, and I didn't understand that at the time. One of the things she asked me to give her was power of attorney, and I thought nothing of it. So I gave her power of attorney, which meant that she could make legal decisions without mentioning them to me. And one of the decisions that she made later, I had a recording contract at Capitol Records. I was making albums, and I loved recording. I loved singing. And she was never happy with anything that was going on at Capitol. I don't know why, because I was working with a great producer who produced with Sinatra and Peggy Lee, just really beautiful stuff. And I was working on a movie in France called The Young Girls of Rochefort, and I had occasion to talk to Ruth on the phone about catching up on things. And at the end of that conversation, she said, "Oh, by the way, I've canceled your Capitol contract." Well, it went over my head because I didn't get it, but that was a mistake to ever have given her power of attorney, because she made some serious mistakes. So that's one huge regret. Yes, and I would say that I tell any young person who asks me, this is one that no matter what you do, don't give power of attorney to anyone. They don't need it, and if they ask for it, be suspicious. You know?
I think that's some great advice. So looking back now, we're going to be celebrating, and you are with the remaining cast of the West Side Story, the 60th anniversary in a few months. What does it mean 60 years later now for the West Side Story?
Well, it's just we're all in it together. We're first of all, we're thrilled. It's to have for that film to have had this life is is really extraordinary, and the fact that we are all got to be part of this film. So it feels great, really, to all of us. First of all, again, we loved what we were doing. Working on this movie was so wonderful, and the fact that we've remained friends, all of us, over the years, and what I call a West Side Story family. All of that has really given us something beautiful to share with each other, and to appreciate the recognition worldwide that West Side Story has had from the time it premiered in, what was it, 1961. It's just mind-boggling.
So building off of that, how do you feel about Steven Spielberg now doing a remake of the West Side Story? Is it a compliment to you guys?
Oh, listen, of course it's a compliment. I think it's great. And listen, I'm sure he's going to do something really, really wonderful, because he's a really, you know, we don't have to get he's an extraordinary filmmaker. It'll be wonderful to see what he's done. I'm sure he'll. The one thing that I would say about him and his version, I'll say, of West Side Story was that he had this extraordinary template to work from, which of course was the West Side Story that we were a part of.
Yeah, exactly.
So he didn't have to create anything new. He had something to work with that he could play with and change, and I'm sure again that he's done wonderful things with. But it was created for him a long time before that.
Oh, I hear you. So I just want to talk about a few random stories from your book that I really enjoyed. What was it like to witness Dorothy Dandridge's performance also be in the presence of the legendary Cole Porter? What was that like?
That was a live 90-minute special, live television. So it was theater. You couldn't make mistakes. And the first number I recall that was performed during that live telecast was a number with Dorothy Dandridge. She was, I never spoke to her, but she was beautiful. She was a great performer, wonderful singer, wonderful dancer, wonderful actress. I mean, she's so amazing in Carmen Jones. But so it was really interesting to see these professional people dedicated and to what they were doing. I was really struck by their professionalism. And when she was doing her number, because we watched all the rehearsals, so we knew what everybody was going to do before it was ever taped. And I noticed one tiny little, really small little mistake that she made that no one would ever see. And it scared me when she made it, because I thought, God, what if that happens to me? But it was a tiny mistake, and she kept going. No one would ever, I don't even remember what it was now, but she was very beautiful to watch, very beautiful.
And then what was it like to just be in the presence of Cole Porter, one of the greatest composers in history?
Oh, God. Well, you know, on that show, I was not one of the stars. I got to partner Sally Forrest, who was one of the stars. So at the very end of the show, everybody gathers onto this carousel with Noel Coward, I think, sitting on the steps of it. So we all got to be in that one shot with him, and I was lucky they pulled me into it. Even, it was. I didn't really appreciate it at the time, but I have appreciated it since. That we were all there in that one shot with Cole Porter. Never spoke to him, but just to have been in his, it sounds really corny to say, just to have been in his presence was kind of awesome, because he was such a gifted songwriter, composer, and person. It was. Everybody felt the same way. Everybody, Gordon McRae, Shirley Jones, George Sanders, they all felt we were in the presence of someone really special, and we were.
And then one other story that I found that was kind of interesting, when you had a contract with Paramount, you got to witness Elvis Presley do a screen test on the studio.
Oh, right.
What was that about?
Yes.
Like?
Well, I'll tell you, because I was under contract there, I could walk around the lot and watch anything that was going on. And I wandered onto that set, and he was filming Blue Suede Shoes, performing, and I think he appreciated people watching. I think he appreciated an audience, even filming. He was so charismatic and charming to watch, and it was he's such a great performer. But it was what I really felt watching him, that I really liked who this guy was a person. You know, there was something very nice about him. And I think that's what audiences felt when they watched him anyway. He was very likable. But again, just the way while he was doing the test, he still connected to anyone out and around and anywhere else in the studio who was watching him. He connected with them at the same time, I think.
Great story. So then, in closing, what do you want your fans and anybody who is a fan of your work to know about you that we don't?
Oh, God, I have no idea.
I guess read the book and find out?
Well, no, listen, just, God, how things happen in life, and to appreciate, as I guess we all do, the good things that happen, and to hope you can get through the things that are more difficult. But there's a quote. Larry King, some while ago, asked me, and like lots of other people, for quotes for a book, and I put my quote. Actually, it's in the book, and that quote is, "No matter how dark the moment, love and hope are always possible." And that was my quote, and I think that's really true. No matter how difficult things are, if we can get past that moment of things being difficult, you know, the sun comes out and we're okay.
Where do you keep your Oscar, and how often do you look at it?
Well, it's on a shelf with other things in my bedroom. So hey, I guess I see it every day I'm in my bed, and that's every day. But I know I don't notice it, but that's where it is.
Well, maybe you'll notice it after our conversation today. Legendary actor, Academy Award-winning actor George Chakiris. Read his book, My West Side Story. It is a positive and interesting story about the highs and lows of a show business career, and how show business and how sometimes products are made and not, and how close things can become to a reality and not a reality. Thank you so much for being with me today on CYInterview. In closing, what do you want people to take away from your book?
Well, just hopefully the fun of reading about people that I've worked with and so on, had the good fortune to friendships, just people, our connection to other people, friends, people we don't know so well, and appreciating the people that we have in our lives that matter. Everybody matters, but some are more important to us than others. I would just say it's our relationship with people, and do the best we can in those relationships to have everything be as good as we can make it.
Well, final thought, and I know that I've kind of helped you think about this today, but you worked with everybody, or you witnessed everybody, or you saw everybody. I mean, you can mention every prominent name in Hollywood and pop culture history of the last 60 or 70 years, and you either worked with them, were on stage with them, met them, said hi to them, were in the same room with them. I mean, there are a few people that have those experiences that you do.
Well, yeah, you know, again, it's... and by the way, doing the book reminded me of all the people that I've gotten to be around and got to know some, worked with some, and what an amazing, it is an amazing kind of list of extraordinary people, and it was so great. It sounds so corny to say, but it really was. I love the fact that I got to be around those people for however long it was, and to work with some, to know some personally, and I really treasure that, because they were, by and large, amazing people.
George, thank you so much. Hang on with me, okay?
Okay.